Learn to love the you that came before. Hello, welcome back to my 90 days of lessons from me, for me to you. And today is day 33. I know that because I went back and I looked through all the videos. And this is probably the fifth time I'm trying to record this video right now. But let's get through it. So today's lesson is learning to love the you that came before. This lesson is one that I would say that I practice every day of my life. Because that's the thing about lessons. I don't think you truly learn lessons unless you actually put them in practice. You know, there's no point to having knowledge if you don't use it. But a motto that I always say to myself is that everything that I do in life is for my past self. Again, everything I do in life, for my future self, so they can be thankful for me. But when I say my past self, I mean myself as a child, like all the hopes and dreams that I had as a child, right? And being grateful for your past self, I feel like is a very important thing for us, especially because I feel like people who would gravitate towards this channel are in some form of transformative journey, a self-improvement journey, if you will. And I'm not the biggest fan of the term self-improvement because there's a little negative connotation in that space. But sorry, it's been a morning. But yeah, back on topic. Learning to love your past self means accepting all the failures that you've done in the past, that you've been through, right? I feel like when we usually look at our past, we try to always focus on the negative things. And there's times where we're grateful for the positive things, but we're never really grateful for the negative things. And that makes sense, right? Who wants to be grateful for the time they, struck out at something that they did? They probably try to play a sport or try to impress their friends or try to do something that was embarrassing, and it led to a pretty how would I say, compromising moment for them, right? But it's like thinking back to that and seeing how it was, and the things that it did for you. You took a lesson away from that, and that's, like I always say, the most important thing that the most important things you should do in life is take a lesson away from things, right? Like, always make sure that whatever you do in life, you take a lesson away from it. And the only real way to do that is to, look at your past self and give that person grace, right? Because you didn't know any better. That's the thing. If you put your hand on a hot stove, like, a mother's job is not to punish the child for putting their hand on a hot stove, right? It's like, okay, you did that, you messed up, and now don't let it happen again. If it's a repeat offense, then all right, yeah, do some sort of reprimanding, give some negative reinforcement there. But the thing is, once you mess up one time, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself, right? As long as you, like I said, you take a lesson away from it and move forward with it, right? Because that lesson in your present, right? The person you are today, you apply that, that, you do that, right? Like, I'll take myself, for example, right? In the past, there are things that I haven't been the best at, or the things I haven't been the best about as a person. And that's honestly what the entire point of this series is, to show, things that I've kind of been lacking on in the past. Because I'll admit, I was never the biggest fan of my past self at one point in time. I always try to bury who I was. And to some extent, I still try to do that to this day. Because it's not, like I said, with consistency, it's not a linear line. It's not one thing that you're going to get done. You learn it once and then that's it. Yeah, that's not possible. Like, we're human, we mess up, we falter, we backslide is the term that I would use. We move forward, but sometimes we make it take a step back, even if we don't really want to. Maybe intentional, maybe it's like a safety thing, maybe it's like, it's comfortable, right? But I feel like with self-improvement, we always give this idea of killing our past self. But it's like, why would you kill your past self? Like, sure, I would say there's nothing to look for in the past except for lessons. But if you kill your past self, those lessons are gone, right? Like, there's no lesson to be learned. I understand, a lot of us, we may want to change the way we look. Maybe we were in a relationship and it didn't end well, and you're just like, you're feeling pretty negative about the way that you look, and you hit the gym. There's nothing wrong with that. You hit the gym, you're feeling better. You're like, oh damn, I'm looking good, blah blah blah, blase blase. And I can speak to that because I was that. And I will say, one of the things that made me appreciate my past self was my past relationship. Like I said, this relationship really taught me a lot about myself, which is kind of one of the points about relationships. It's not just getting into a relationship, being happy with the person, doing whatever you do with that person, going on dates and those things. No, like a relationship is to it allows you to get to know yourself. As much as you're learning about that person, it gets you to learn more about yourself on a deeper level. It gets you to learn more about, maybe what your type is, maybe what you want, maybe what you like, maybe what you dislike, and things of that nature. Right? So, of course, I learned from it. And I learned that, going forward, one of the reasons why I feel like I couldn't get rid of this self-hatred that I had was because I liked who I was in the present, but I didn't like who I was in the past. And I understand that for a lot of people, that's kind of hard to grasp, because there are people who are, there were bad people in the past. But the thing is, there's no positive light to hating yourself in any capacity. There's no positive light to hating. Maybe you're as a kid or as a teenager, you were an absolute dickhead. I get it. You were a little shit. And you became this better person that you like way more. And that's fine. You can like the person that you are today. But you have to understand that you had to go through that in the past to become that person. Right? You had to be that dickhead. You had to be that asshole to become the person that you are today. And there's nothing wrong with loving who you were. You don't need to like who you were, but it's the thing of, I love who I am and I love all that I am. I don't like that I was like that when I was younger, but I'm appreciative of it because it's pushed me forward to become who I am today. That's how I think we should look at our past selves. It's like, you don't need to necessarily like who that person was. You don't need to necessarily like all the things you did and all the things that you stood for, right? If I was a racist in the past, of course I wouldn't like the fact that I was a racist, but I would, this is kind of a touchy subject to kind of go on, but I would accept the idea that, okay, yeah, I was like that, I was wrong, but would I have changed that? Yes, you would have changed it. But, it's a lesson that you went through and you learned, Maybe that's not the best example. I feel like using racist as an example is one of those extremes. Maybe you were a bully as a kid, and then okay, there we go. I feel like that's a way better example. Maybe you were a bully as a kid, right? And you used to bully other kids, but then you grew up and you realized, like, damn, I was an absolute shithead, man. Like, what? I was so sad and miserable with my life. Actually, wait. We can still use a racist example. You were so sad and miserable with your life that you took that out on hating other people. Maybe, you hate yourself and you took that out on hating other people. I feel like sometimes, I don't want to be like the guy who says that, if you hate gay people, blah, 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 you're gay. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. But I feel like have been a lot of times where in the past, a lot of people that, have all this negative connotation of gay people, they themselves are in the closet a little bit, like there's this one guy that I work with. He's gay, right? And something that he said threw me off. He's gay, super Christian, super Republican. And he was like, I know that being gay isn't a choice, but there's a lot of self-hatred there. I could hear it with the way he was talking. There's a lot of self-hatred. Like, he was like, he knows that being gay is not a choice, but if he could give up his entire life to eradicate gay people on the planet, which is crazy to say, he would do it. And I'm like, there's a lot of self-hatred there that you need to unpack that is coming out as you hating other gay people. Like, your sexuality is just who you are. You more than anybody else in that position of being super Republican, super Christian, knows that it's not a choice, right? It's not I'm waking up today and I'm attracted to men. No, I don't wake up every day and I choose to be attracted to women. I just am. And that's why whenever people, kind of hate on gay people, I'm just like, dude, the same way you don't wake up and choose to be attracted to women is the same way they don't wake up and choose to be attracted to that. That's not a choice that they make. But yeah, I feel like for him, if he loved himself in the past and the present, it'd be a lot better for him, to be honest with you. But, it's okay to love who you are now, but you also need to love who you were back then, because it led to who you are now. Everything that you do in life leads to who you are now. I know it sounds weird and it's kind of a little bit backwards at times, even if you were this absolute shit person, maybe you were a serial cheater, blah, 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 XYZ. And, maybe there were lessons that you learned that you did not need to learn if you just listened a little bit more. But the fact is, you got to where you are. You know, the reason why I say you should love who you are in the past, because a lot of people, they're still in that position and they never change. They never change. They're still who they still are who they are. They're who they were back then and they're who they are today. And I feel like that is the worst part about it, because there's no growth, right? That's the reason why you should love your past self, because it shows that you grew as a person. It shows that there's growth in who you were, right? I think that's the most important thing, especially as a human being, growth. We should be growing every single day. You should be growing every single month, you know, just learning new things. Like, I feel like the death of who we are is when we stop learning. I feel like that's definitely a quote from somewhere that I'm getting. But the death of who we are is when you stop learning. And that doesn't mean just learning from like a textbook or learning like education wise and all those things. It's like learning about yourself, learning about others, and, you know, seeing things from different point of views and just being open-minded. The more open-minded you are, the happier. The more open-minded you are, the more you learn, and the more knowledge you have does lead to a more cynical outlook on life. I'm not gonna lie to you, because you're aware of more things. But, you know, the more knowledge you have on different topics, I feel like the better you are as a person. Usually, I feel because you can make more informed opinions. You can make your own opinions. You know, your opinion can suck, because I've met some people with some shit ass opinions. But if you can back it up in terms of like, oh, these are the, and I mean like actually back it up. Don't tell me some shit that you saw on the internet or on fucking Fox News. I mean like actually back up what you're saying. But yeah, that's today's lesson. We're getting kind of long. My smoke alarm has gone off because somebody did not clean the oven. Smart homes are the worst inventions we've ever made. So that's today's lesson. I love you. Always put God first in all that you do in life, and love yourself before you love anybody else. And if there's nobody out there that loves you, I love you. And I really do hope this video provided some type of value to you. I will see you tomorrow.